Hello, everyone, and welcome to Learnable Computer Science. Today, we'll be going over the third topic of Python, which is conditionals and exceptions. So let's get into it. So let's first start off to say what exactly is a condition, right? So it's basically a statement that uses Booleans to decide what happens after an expression. For example, 3 is less than 2 is a condition. So it's basically a statement that decides whether it's a true or false. So some expressions are that it uses logical operations that result in a Boolean value, exactly what I said before. So 1 is equal to 1 is a Boolean expression. But before we go into this, we should just look at this chart right here. Here are the operators and here are the meanings. So for the operators, a double equal to means the equal to. But you may be asking why the equal to, like the normal equal sign, cannot be here. But the normal equal sign is a comparison operator. For example, you use it to assign something. So over here, it's an equal to operator. So it checks if two values are equal to each other. So that's why it cannot be used. That's why the normal equal sign cannot be used. And here is the less than symbol. And so if you took any math class before, hopefully you know what these are. So the less than symbol basically means that the left-hand value is less than the right-hand value. And sorry, the right-hand value is less than the left-hand value is less than the right-hand value. And then the exact opposite for greater than. And over here is a not equal to. This one you did not see. This basically is the exact opposite of double equal to, except it's saying if it's not equal to this. So if this value is not equal to this value. And here are the less than or equal to signs and the greater than or equal to signs. So hopefully now you kind of understand what this means. So if it's like 1 double equal to or equal to 1, which is true, right? Because 1 and 1 are the same thing. And 2 not equal to 3, that is correct. So whenever you see these kind of signs, just be sure to just replace it with the meanings over here. For example, for this, you can say 2 not equal to 3, and vice versa. So we use conditionals to use if, elif, and else statements. We also need to go over some other logical operations like the and or operations. So and is if both expressions are true, condition is true. Otherwise, it's false. And or is if either one of the conditions are true, it's true. So now let's do some practice questions on what we have saw. So just take a minute and pause the video to just try to go through each one of the problems, and then when that's done, we'll go over each and every one of them. So just please pause the video right now and solve them. Okay, so over here, first problem. 1 is less than 2. Is 1 less than true? That is true. So this entire statement is true. Next, is 34 equal to 34? That's true. So now if 2 is less than or equal to 1, that is not true because 2 is greater than 1, so it's false. Is 2 not equal to 6? That is true, so it's true. True and false or true. This one you may have been stumped a little bit because this has two expressions. So true and false. Let's go through this from beginning to end, right? True and false. True and false. So we remembered and is if both sides of the expressions are true, then it's true. Even if one of them is false, then the entire thing is false. So if true and false, it's false because like for it to be true, both this has to be true and this has to be true. But if this is false, then the entire expression is false. So it's false or true. So if it's false or true, we learn that or is even if one of them is true, the entire statement is true. So because it's false or true, it's true at the end. So the answer is true. Hopefully that makes sense. And if you need any help on these, please be sure to email me if you have any questions. Next up, we have false and false. Okay. This side doesn't have a true. This side doesn't have a true. Both sides have a false, so it's false at the end. And now we go into more of these. So is 2 greater than or equal to 1? That is true. And is 2 not equal to 1? This is true, right? Because 2 is greater than 1. And 2 is not equal to 1. So this is true. Now let's do this. 2 is greater than or equal to 1. That is true. And 2 is equal to 1. This is true, but 2 is not equal to 1. So this is false. So true and false is always false. So it's false over here. Now let's do the next one. 3 is less than 1. That is false. Or 2 is less than 2. That is also false. It's false or false, so it's false. Even if one of the two expressions is true, then the expression is true for the or operator. Let's do this one. 4 is not equal to 4. That is false. Or 4 is greater than or equal to 3. Both of them are false, so it's false. Now let's do this one. 12 is greater than or equal to 12. That is true. And this is the or operator. We don't even care about whatever this is. Because even if this is true or if it's false, this entire expression will be true. But let's just do it because we need practice. So this side is true, or 3 is not equal to 3. This is false. But the thing is, because one side is true, this entire expression is true. So that's why the answer is true here. Hopefully that made sense. Sorry. So now let's go into the if, else, else statements, the thing that we have been building for. What we have just done were conditional expressions. But now you'll see those conditional expressions inside the if statements. So basically what they are is they're statements that utilize the conditionals and the if, elif, and else. The if statement is the first thing that checks what. So if this statement is correct, then it does the actions inside of its condition, and it skips all the other ones. Even if one of the if, elif, and else statement is true, it skips all the rest. There can only be one if statement. Elif statement. If the if statement isn't true, then this runs. And there can be multiple if statements. Like here, right? You can have multiple you can have multiple elif conditions stacked on top of each other. And each one has its own condition. So that means if this condition does not pass, it skips over this code. And then it checks this one. If this is not true, it skips over this code. And if there's one more elif condition, right, then it skips over that if it's not true. And until it is true, it'll run that. Yeah, this is the elif condition. And there can be multiple elif conditions. And the else. If the if and the elif statements aren't true, then this is executed. For example, if you have one if condition and you have 3 elif conditions, if the if condition is not true and all the elif conditions are not true as well, then the else statement will run no matter what. But the thing is, if the if statement in this example is true, the code runs and everything else on the bottom of that will be skipped, which is huge important. So it's like an if then statement. So if 3 is less than 4, do this. elif, if 3 is greater than 4, do this, else do this. So there's no like, it can run both. It's one concrete thing. So it'll either run the if or the elif or the else statements. Hopefully that made sense, but we'll do more practice on this to make sure that everything kind of clicks. So let's do more practice problems. Like the reason why we're doing these practice problems is to make sure that we understand the material. There's no better way to understand the material than to do practice. So so please take a minute. Actually, let me just explain the syntax for you a little bit here, and then you can do it. So basically here, we have the number as 5. We learned that previously as a variable with the value of 5. And then here we have the we have the if, elif, and else statements. Remember, there can be multiple elif statements. So this basically, so the if statement checks a condition. If number is equal to 1, and if that is true, then it prints this value, right? But then because this is true, all of this will be skipped. All the elif and else statements will be skipped. But the thing is, if this is not true, it goes down the ladder. If num is equal to 2, if num is equal to 2, then it'll do this. If it is true, it will skip the stuff at the end. Then it'll check again if that's not true. If num is equal to 3, and if that is true, it'll run this, and it'll skip the else statement. Only if all the other conditions are false for all the stuff below, this else statement runs. So now you may be confused, like, why is there a colon? Why is there like a indent and that kind of stuff? That just kind of syntax, which you kind of need to learn. So just keep practicing that and you'll get it. So this is the condition which we have learned before. Just remember to put the if, elif, and else statement, elif word before it, put the colon, and then you have to press enter, and it'll automatically tab for you. And this is the body of code that will run. For example, if this is true, then it'll run this body of code. And just do that for all the other exercises. So once you're done, please unpause the video and we can go through the answers together. Okay. So here are some practice problems answers, and I'll be going through each of the practice problems just to make sure that you all understand the material. So again, like I said before, num is equal to 5. That means that 5 is in the container of num. So if num is equal to 1, that is not true. So this gets skipped. So this statement does not run. Elif, num is equal to 2. That is not true because 5 is not equal to 2. So this statement gets skipped. Elif, num is equal to 3. 5 is not equal to 3. So this gets skipped. So only if this statement runs, it will go to the body of the statement. And if it doesn't, it will skip it. So else, only if all the other conditions are false, then only it will run the else statement. And this is why it will print answer as 4. And I got to point out that you do not need elif statements. It can just be an if and else statement. You do not need an you do not need an elif statement. You also don't need an else statement as well. You can just have an if statement by itself. But the thing is, it has no other conditions. So it can be useful in some cases, but you most likely want to have an if and an else statement. And if needed, you can have more elif statements. So now let's go into the second practice problem. Num2 is equal to 10. So if num2 is less than 18, answer 1. That is true because 10 is less than 18. So it will print answer 1. But here's the thing, because this is true, right? Everything else gets skipped, even though 10 is less than 15, even though 10 is less than or equal to 10. All of this gets skipped. It's only until the first condition that is true, you'll print that condition. Everything else gets skipped. So because 10 is less than 18, it'll print answer 1. But it doesn't check any of this. because it skipped all of this. So the answer is just answer 1. Remember, that's a huge factor. It only runs once. And until it finds a condition that's true, you'll do it. Until then, you'll keep doing it. If it finds it, you'll skip everything else. And finally, let's go on to the last one. So num3 is equal to 5. So 5 is greater than 10. That is not true. And because it's an AND, right? Both sides have to be true. So just because this is false, everything becomes false. So there's no point of checking this. So let's go on to the next one. Elif, num3 is greater than 8. That is false, right? 5 is not greater than 8. But because it's an OR, we have to check one more. So if num3 is equal to 5, 5 is equal to 5, so that's true. It'll print answer 2, and that's the answer. And it'll skip the else statement. Okay, cool. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me. Or you could also join some of like the you can also join some of the tutor sessions which we have going on at Learnable. Basically, where you guys can jump on like a Zoom meeting, and we can more than happy be able to answer any and all of you guys' questions. So now let's actually code. So if you can launch your Visual Studio Code, that'll be greatly appreciated. You can go on open folder, right? That's how you open it. So you just go on the file, press open folder. Hopefully you all have a folder where learnable Python code is already there. If you need any more help on this, I have previous videos where we have went over how to do this. So now I can press open. And here we have went through both of these, right? So to add a new file, you just press the add file button, and you can just type in the name. So this would be conditionals. .py. Remember the .py, super important. Okay, so now we have a blank canvas to work on. So our first task is to make variables with true or false. We already done this, but I want to emphasize Booleans are super important for this. So we can do as expression is equal to true, or other expression is equal to false. So basically, you're assigning the Boolean value of true inside of expression. You're assigning the Boolean value of false inside other expression. Hopefully that makes sense by now. Okay, so now let's build a program where we can check if a person is an adult or if they're not an adult. So let's say that for now, let's make this a little simple. So let's say age is equal to, let's just say age is equal to 19, right? So let's see if they're an adult. So if age is greater than 18, you have to put the colon at the end and then press enter, or automatically put a tab there. Then you say print, you are an adult. Basically what I did here is I just checked. I just made a new variable called age, and I say if age is greater than 18, you are an adult. Because if you're greater than 18, you're an adult. And else, you are not an adult. Print, you are not an adult. Okay, so let's run this. Let's see what happens. You are an adult. That's true. Because 19 is greater than 18. So then you are an adult. Remember, technically you don't need this. This can run by itself, right? Like if statements can run by itself, But the thing is, an else statement cannot run by itself. Only if statements can run by itself. So it can be this, or it can have a bunch of else statements in between, which we'll go into a little bit more detail. Okay, so now we made a program. We'll basically say if age is greater than 18, you're an adult. If it's not, you're not an adult. Let's make this program have a little more, how should I say this? A little more interactivity, because we want the user to enter their age, right? So instead of doing age as 19, we can do input. How old are you? And remember, this is super important. You need the int casting, because the input, as said in the last class, the input automatically returns a string value, but we want an int. So that means we have to wrap it around or cast it to an int so that the age is an integer value. So now we can correctly compare it. So let's run. So now let's run this. How old are you? I can say I'm 17. You are not an adult because 17 is not greater than 18. I can run it again. How old are you? I can say 19 now. Now it says you are an adult because 19 is greater than 18. This is super cool, as now we're able to build programs with interactivity and have different outcomes based on that interactivity as well. So we're starting to build on those fundamental coding concepts where we slowly start to get to a place where we can truly make the user have other choices and that have different outcomes. Okay. What if we want to have an elif statement here? So elif, age is greater than 13. Print, you are T, right? Because from 13 to 18 is teen. This is the beauty of it. Because of having it here, right? You automatically know that the age is less than 18 if this doesn't run. Because if it's greater than 18, it will skip both of these. But because you put age as greater than 13 here, it will automatically be assumed it's between 13 and 18. Because if it is 18 or above, this would run. So if this is running, that means the age is between 13 and 18. Which is just super cool in my opinion. You can basically like craft this into an art if you want. And then you can change this to you are a kid at that point. You are a child. Okay. I can make this an exclamation point. So now if I run it, how old are you? Let's say 19. You're an adult. School. How old are you? I am 14. You're a teen. So now if I run it again, if I am 3 years old, you're a child. So that's pretty cool. We basically built a program where we can collect an input and based on that input have different outcomes based on that input, which is a huge skill that we'll be using for future Python courses. So now let me just open the, sorry. Okay. So now let's go into exceptions. This will be pretty quick. Exceptions are basically like if you have an error in your program, it puts it out. And this basically prevents the program from running fully because you don't want a program if there's errors in it to keep running because like that's not, it's like the program doesn't work, so you don't want it to work. So ways to fix this. This is a skill called debugging. Debugging basically means to wait to fix your program. So there's multiple ways of looking at this. One is look over your code, make sure that everything is how it's supposed to be. Look for red and yellow lines between words. For example, if I can go back to VS Code, I can forget the colon. And here, there'll be a red line here, expected. So it will show you the error. So then you can just fix it like that. Or if you say like, let's do hello. It'll show a yellow line here because it says hello is not defined. So those kind of stuff. Be sure to watch out if those kind of stuff exist. And based on that, you can fix your problem. And then fix any found errors, like exactly what we did. Like the VS Code shows what is wrong. So if you just fix that, you can get it. And on the left, here are some common errors, like syntax error. So basically, like if something is incorrect or if you're missing a colon, like I was before, that's a syntax error. Name error is if it's not defined. So that's what we saw before again, if it's hello. Value error is if you're adding a string and an integer that doesn't make sense. So that's important to typecast. So if you don't typecast in the age example, you'll run into a value error. An index error we'll go more into later. Token error we'll also go into a little bit later. And yeah, we'll go into from index error to type error once we have more skills and tools to equip ourselves for later. So from the homework, first part, we basically just did. So hopefully you got the main idea of how it works. So if they're old enough to vote, if they're 18 or older, then they can vote. Print out, you can vote. Or if they cannot vote, you say you cannot vote. And then pick a number, make a number guessing game, and each time the user guesses, program should say whether it's higher or lower, and if it matches the number. For example, if the number is 78, right? For number is 78. You have an if statement saying if the guess is less than 78, do this. If the guess is greater than 78, do this. If it's equal to this, do this. So simple program. Basically what we just did before, except we added a number guessing element to it. And again, this is a huge step in progress. Keep up the good work. This is really complicated work. So if you're able to do this, you're in the right shape for the next class. So thank you so much for watching. And in the next video, we'll be going over how to do the homework.